start out with this. It's hard to make definitive statements about the Nets right now when they aren't playing their big star players. You know, it's either two of them. Last night, obviously, it was one of them. So it's hard. They've only played 7 games together with Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. They're 5-2. But when all 3 of those guys aren't on the floor, even in a great win like last night, it's hard to read too much into it. Look, Joe Harris was great, 22 points. Jeff Green was fantastic, 18 points, 11 in the fourth quarter. But their roles will change. Tyler Johnson was good too. But all of those guys' roles will change, as will James Harden's. He's not going to score 38 when those two are there. So I have to put that out there, and I got to throw this out as well. I'm starting to worry that they're not playing together enough. They've only, as I said, 7 games. It's reminding me of the Clippers last year, how they weren't practicing a lot together. They weren't playing a lot together, and they kind of felt like they could just get on the court with their star players and everything was going to fit. And the Nets seem to be going that route as well. So I'm a little bit concerned there. But as far as a takeaway, I'm going to go with the defense. We know that is their biggest challenge, and they're not going to be a great defensive team, but they can be adequate. And that's all they need, is to be adequate and to get stops when necessary, to be capable of getting stops late in the game when they have to. And they did it last night. They held Phoenix to about 44% shooting in the second half, held them scoreless in the last 2.5 minutes. Devin Booker, the great Devin Booker, 0 points in the fourth quarter. So they showed that when push comes to shove, Antoine, they can turn on the defense.
My biggest takeaway, Chris, and I loved a lot of the things that you talked about, but it was about the others and James Harden. But it was the others to me. I think the Jeff Greens, the Joe Harris, the Tyler Johnsons, those guys do not get any recognition, and they probably will not get any all season long. But to go on the road, to play a red-hot team like the Phoenix Suns, and to come back from 24 and multiple guys make big plays late in the games is a confidence booster. Because a person that was a part of a championship team like myself, where Shaq and D. Wade got all the individual accolades, it's always good throughout the season to have a game where the others step up and get you a big win, especially on the road. On the other half of that, I thought James Harden was incredible. Continued to play with a good pace, regardless when they were down 24, stayed on their attack mode, got other guys involved. But we've seen that for the last 7, 8 years in Houston, him have these type of performances. But I think it's good for him to do it. It's good for Kyrie and Kevin to do it, to be on the bench, and just to see the team camaraderie that they build. I think you alluded to something that's very important, though. I do worry a little bit about everything that's going on with them off the court, where guys are not actually playing. You got, obviously, protocol. They need to get some consistency going if they're going to make a real run and try to win a title. But right now, last night was a huge win and a statement win for the others that was out there that played really well for them.
For me, it was all about James Harden. And I hear you, Antoine. The others did step up, but it was because of the facilitation of James Harden and his ability to get them open in position where they could be most effective, getting DeAndre Jordan easy buckets at the rim, Harris outside, Johnson. Everyone was able to be a role player, but be an effective role player because of the penetration, because of the scoring ability of James Harden. And this is why you do everything you can to acquire a guy like this. The Nets knew. And Chris, I totally get your sentiments when it comes to them all playing together, because you got to build that chemistry in order to have deep runs, and that's what this team is built to do. But this is why you get a guy like James Harden, because you knew you weren't going to play Kevin Durant on back-to-back nights. You knew Kyrie was going to kind of be in and out. And so you acquire a guy like James Harden, who has always been able to get buckets and remind people that Harden is Harden. Nothing's changed. We know he is one of the most elite scorers in the NBA, and this is nothing new for him. So for him to be able to have a showing like this last night, I wasn't surprised. I was impressed by that. The rest, I mean, they do have to figure that out and how they're going to get these guys on the court and building that chemistry, because when it matters most is in the playoffs. It can't be this way in the postseason. We know that, Chris.
Yeah, look, it was a great night for the Nets, and I took a few other positives away from the game, too. A lot of people might not realize this, but the Nets are 10-1 against teams with winning records. They're the only team in the Eastern Conference that has a winning record against teams above 500, believe it or not. They got the best record in the league. Utah second at 10-3. The Lakers, just for comparison's sake, are 5-6. Against teams with winning records. So the Nets, even with everybody in and out of the lineup, when they want to step it up and they look at their opponent as a challenge rather than some of, the games they've lost to these weaker opponents, they can go to another level. So that is a great sign. And you got to think when they get all three of their stars on the court together, that's even going to be more so the case. The other thing, kind of like you were saying, Antoine, their small ball lineup is dangerous. All right. It can give many teams problems because most teams don't have a Joel Embiid or even a big man who's going to punish you if you go small. So last night with Jeff Green playing center, they outscored the Suns 40-24 in the fourth quarter. All right. That small ball lineup gave them problems. DeAndre Ayton couldn't handle Jeff Green. And so that is something that a lot of teams are going to have to deal with as well. So a lot of good positives to come out of last night for the Nets.
And also, just to add to that, is that when you play in small ball, and that's that Mike D'Antoni effect over there on the bench, taking his toll right now when they play small lineups. The difference between their small lineup and, say, a Houston small lineup, it's not James Harden taking 50 dribbles. You don't need them to take 50 dribbles with this group. When they're at 100%, you've got multiple guys that can create their own shot, and the ball moves a lot better. And if you saw that in the last two games, let's talk about the three-point shooting. They made 23s last night without Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. This is a very lethal offensive team. And last night should have showed the league and people that listen. When you have two other guys with James Harden's capability on the floor, that's what makes them difficult to beat. Even though they're not there defensively, but offensively, they have three guys that can do what James Harden did last night on any given night. And most teams do not have that. Most teams are built with 2 stars. These guys are built with 3 stars that with a unique offensive skill set of creating shots for themselves.
Well, the Nets are definitely special to watch.